Hey, real quick, I want you to the Sportsplex,
Yes.
pronounce that acronym for me as well.
Yes. So it's pronounced brand X.
Okay.
So just treat the X like an A, but
Oh,
like
okay.
a brand. So it's brand and then X.
So Brand X Sportsplex is what you call it.
Correct.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And well, tell me a little bit. I mean, you are. I like to say when I meet people like you, I like to say I like to use the label polymath. And what I mean by that is that you do so many different things and you're so accomplished and you wear so many different hats. I love that you have experience with nonprofits, but you have experience with for-profit companies in your own for-profit company because you're an entrepreneur and business builder as well. Um,
Mhm.
and the brand shop. I love your company, the brand shop, a one-stop shop for growth.
Yeah.
And I love that tagline. And I want you to talk about what that means as far, and your experience working with nonprofits. Talk about how important it is for a nonprofit to even consider. I'm not going to get into storytelling yet, but to
Mhm.
consider building their brand and how impactful that can be to fulfilling their mission, because now you run your own nonprofit as well. But talk to us about just how you got started with the brand shop and why that's so important that a nonprofit organization considers building their own brand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I have been in some form of branding my entire career. So for
yeah.
over almost, I guess, 30 plus years. I
Wow.
started in traditional like PR. So I started in PR for the third largest PR firm in the world.
Oh,
And so I really learned the importance of the narrative there, right? And then the structure. But what I found early in my career was that really there were certain people that were great at it and there were others that were not. The nonprofit sector was always in that category of people that were not good at it.
totally.
It was kind of like they all had the same narrative, they all had the same pitch, it was like hands out, we need money, and they just were not, they have come a long way since then,
Yeah.
because most people are very savvy. Still a lot of work to do, right? But they've come a long way. But that just happened to be a sector in an industry that just did not get it right.
Yeah.
And so I started really throughout my career. I moved from PR and then I went into public affairs. And so I not only switched sort of disciplines, but I also switched verticals. And so I have a long history of working in every facet of branding, from PR to advertising to marketing to packaging to public affairs to crisis. So I just really have always really tried to be a student of the game and learn where the gaps were, what's the significance of the story, brand building, how it changes from sector to sector. So nonprofit, obviously, the interest there is because I just have always believed in not just being involved, but giving.
Yeah.
And I don't typically say give back because I'm just a giver.
Yeah.
And I never taught my children to really think of giving back because I did not want it to feel like it should be a one-off or something you do certain times a year. And so we
Mhm.
really refer to our sort of family and tribe as like a tribe of givers. I mean, we just taught it, we instilled it in our client, I mean, in our children and our
Mhm.
clients.
No, I get that impression. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
But for me, that was always what spoke to me. It was just never about working with just the cool people. I certainly I've worked with some very big brands, but
Yeah.
for me it's just really always been about how do I help the people that don't know how to do it well, don't
Yeah.
know the structure and the anatomy of creating a narrative and thinking through their brand. You would be surprised really how many people don't know who they are, and that's as a company, as an organization, as well as individuals. It's just a lot of people out there that are leading companies and leading initiatives, and they just don't know who they are.
Yeah.
um Most of them have an idea, but they really haven't done the deep dive work, right?
Yeah.
Like of figuring out like really what makes us different, because in my world, So in my world, you're listening to what people say about who they are, what they do, and how they do it differently, right?
Right, right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But the funny thing is, if people were on my side, they would see that most of them are saying the same thing.
Mm. How much do you
It's
focus when you're consulting a brand, whether it be a for-profit or a nonprofit? How much time do you spend on nudging them to think about how they're different versus how they compete with others and maybe in the same space or same vertical?
a lot.
Yeah, I
It's
believe in that. So I believe in that so greatly, Nikki. Because we have like a rule. We have four. I wrote four rules for fundraising. One of them, differentiation is stronger than competition. You want to be the pink elephant in the room full of gray elephants.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you can
I
use
don't
that
take
too.
credit for it, but I love it.
Well, I don't think I'm the inventor of the pink elephant theory, but that's what I call it. I call it the pink elephant theory because, well, we
Yeah.
talk to a lot of nonprofits, and I also think that we're a for-profit company. You know, you're a for-profit company, and what have you. And I don't spend very much time focusing on competitors,
Hmm.
and there's a pattern where we say, here where we're saying more good people in the space is good for the space. That's how you and I came across each other, right? And I
Yeah.
believe that strongly. But we don't compete, right? But
Yep.
I don't spend a lot of time on competitors. I'm not aloof, but I focus so intently on our clients
Hmm.
and our people. And you also brought up a really interesting point just now about, do people really understand what they're doing, like their mission, like I call it what they're fighting for. I think that's a really huge thing because, like, my partner Jason and I actually have a coach where he helps us identify exactly what we're doing right now, what we're doing in 18 months, 36 months, 5 years, 10 years, vision, the whole thing. And it's been really, really impactful because like I said, you brought up a really good point. I don't think people spend enough time really understanding who they are, what they're doing, and that being your playbook or marching orders. I mean, talk about that a little bit and differentiation, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that because I rarely hear other people say that they don't spend a lot of time on competitors. So I
Yeah.
love hearing you say that one.
Yeah.
Because I do believe, I mean, there's not enough, I mean, there's just not enough of us doing the good work, right? Like
Sure.
we should all embrace one another because it's just so much work that we need to do in the world.
Collaborate. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have a theory that, within my firm, I really try to really instill we don't win, like we all need to win and we all can win. And
Yeah.
so I don't count it as success if we're not all winning.
Mhm.
That's one. And so I think for me, I spend a great deal of time, not so much like I don't break it down like you would in a corporate sort of audit, like
Mhm.
competitive landscape, although, I'm very aware of it and I am monitoring, but
Mhm.
I really try to get them to think about not just where are they different, but where can they have impact? A lot of
Mm.
folks are not having impact because they are trying to be great at something that they just don't have the skill set or
Mhm.
the strength in the skill set.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
really try to focus on where they are and where they want to be. And then sort of, so if this is where you are, right, and this is where you want to be, I'm
Yeah.
trying to get you closer,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I spend a great deal of time, just really having that conversation. And it's very interesting when you start thinking about organizations because let's say if you take a nonprofit that has a board and a nonprofit that's ran by say or a company with
Mhm.
two partners, like you have a partner.
Mhm.
um, this is simple, but I always do this task of if you were a car, what kind of car would you be and
Mhm.
why? You
Yeah.
would be surprised how many times I get one partner is a Honda, the other partner is a Lamborghini.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanna
So
be a reliable one, maybe like a Toyota or something. Yeah,
yeah, you
yeah.
seem like you would definitely be a reliable car, and
Uh,
you would be one of those cars that you know exactly what you're getting. It can last a long time.
thank
It's
you.
reliable. I see that for you. I
Thank
do.
you so much. Thank you.
Yes, but surprisingly, most people want to be something exclusive and
Mm.
flashy, and and it's not for the masses. Like it's just a simplified way to get people to really think about. Wait a minute, who am I? What are my values? And we all get the mission statement. We all get the objectives, and so most of them know where they are on those things.
Right.
It's just when they really start thinking about, so if you think about brand, for instance, so most people just sort of have a blanket approach to branding or thinking of themselves as a brand.
Hmm.
Then there's brand personality, there's brand tone, there's
Seriously.
brand voice, there's like all these.
Aesthetic. There's brand aesthetic. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's all these layers that most people haven't thought about. And a lot of times, once they start to really look at those individual layers, things don't match.
Right.
And so you really do have to spend a lot of time. And then a biggie is prove it. So
Mm,
when they start saying, well, we have impact with girls ages, 18 or 14 to 18, prove
mm,
it, show
mm.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That becomes an issue because a lot of people are talking.
Yeah.
And they, now it doesn't mean that you crush their dreams and you
No,
and
totally. But I think you're talking about self-aware. You're talking about a big, like, you're talking about a few things. You're talking about, like, what is your mission? Give us your marketing message. We say do it in 10 words or less, but give or take. But you're also talking about a big game of self-awareness. You're talking about the cars,
absolutely.
and I think that's huge, and I don't think that's talked about enough probably, right? Especially with building brands, like
Yeah.
who we are. Let's just talk about really who we are, like tear back the layers, get in the that kind of thing. And
Yeah,
yeah,
and not just saying what sounds good, but who are
yeah.
we? And it's okay if we're not yet what we want to be, right? Like
Mm,
we're all in pursuit of becoming better, right?
mhm.
So I think that people get so caught up in the language and the words and wanting to sound the part that they really, when they meet a person like me, sometimes it's a shock because
Yeah,
they think I'm just going to come in and kind of say the things they want to hear.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so I have had people say, "Why did we hire her again?"
Totally. Yeah, I get you. Well, I'm not coming in to give you flowers right away, you know what I
No,
mean?
no,
Like, yeah,
no.
yeah. Yeah. No, you
Yeah,
gotta deal with a little bit of discomfort. Change leads to growth, and
that's right.
it sounds like you challenge people. Nikki Barjon from, the Brand Shop joining us, and I just, I such a pleasure to have you, and you and I always riff, and it's awesome. Um, I'm
You.
noticing something with most, really, prolific guests like yourself and different folks that we have the good fortune of coming into contact with, there seems to be a trend,
Mhm.
and in especially with nonprofits, and what I mean with when a trend, a pattern, this is not going anywhere. I'm hearing experts like yourself keep saying things about the importance of storytelling,
Yes.
and talk to me about that and how it's layered into your company. And I know you started a nonprofit, the Brand X Sportsplex. I want to get into that a little bit, and of course, you got the book coming out. But talk to me about the just how vital it is, especially when you're sharing impact and trying to grow your organization, whether it be a for-profit or nonprofit. The this how vital it is to be a good storyteller and share your story.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, it's one of the most important elements, and it's not easy, right? Like
Yeah.
this is the first time in my entire career that I have started telling my own story,
Oh,
and
cool. Yeah.
I did not realize how difficult it was
Yeah. Yeah.
because I have been telling other people's stories for more than 20 years.
Oh, good. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it took, which is actually how the book came about, because I don't know that I set out to be an author, and like I never thought about book sales or book tours. I
Yeah.
really was like, it was really the process of me really figuring out how to tell my own story
Yeah.
and what mattered to me. And there was always this confusion around who I was,
Mm.
because I do so many things, but and to the average person it just looks like I'm a person that touches all these things that don't really map back to one another, but they all are a part of what I do in the world of branding.
Yeah.
But storytelling is one of the absolute most critical elements in
Yeah.
what I do. And I think that when I started looking at, well, what makes me so good at telling other people's stories, because it's not only, giving you the account of what they've done and talking about their journey, it's also learning to speak in their voice. And so
Mm.
one of the things my clients, throughout the years, they would always say, wow, it sounds exactly like me.
Yeah.
I wasn't always as good at it.
Yeah.
In fact, I got fired one time because I was trying to write speaking points for a client that accused me of writing them for another client that was in the same group, and that client said, this doesn't sound like me. Like, I
Mhm.
would never use these words. I don't even know what these words mean.
Mhm.
And it sort of shocked me into, wait a minute, there has to be another way or another approach. I can't take a cookie cutter approach to telling someone's story. It's
Yeah.
not fair to the person. And so I began to really take storytelling very serious. And one of the very first things I do is study the client. I study their tone, I study their humor, I study what makes them tick. I can know down to the second when a client is about to get uncomfortable and come in and sort of, give them in their own voice, sort of things to think about that keep them from sort of going over the edge.
Mhm.
And I've become so good at it that I tell people I speak like 60 languages,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can literally go from one client and they can be totally different. It could be a rapper to a politician to a preacher, and I
Right,
can
right.
speak all of those voices within, minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I think the hard part of storytelling is really figuring out what to leave out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
That
interesting. Like addition by subtraction. Yeah.
yeah, because
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, part of it is, for me, and part of storytelling when you're talking about individuals, right? Part
Mhm.
of what's so hard about storytelling is that you are when you're telling a story, it comes with what you've been through, your past, your emotions, your
Mm.
perceptions. It comes with all of these things.
Mhm.
And there is a process that you have to go through to sort of cut through all that clutter to say, what do I want to leave the person with? How do
Mhm.
I want to tell this story, and what parts are not relevant to this right now?
Right.
And so for me, that's part of my blessing and my curse, because I can leave out or add in anything I need to be relevant to that conversation. But that's also part of the reason that most people don't know what I do. So
Right.
depending on what we were talking about, that determines how you kind of know me and what you know me as,
Yeah.
because I can borrow from these different parts of my life and my story
Yes.
to make it relevant to what we're talking about.
You're sharing experience. It sounds like you have such tremendous experience, and you become, when you've been in business as long as you have and work with so many different characters and clients and brands, you become a student of human behavior, whether you want to be or not, right? I mean, it's just kind of the
That's right.
reality of it, right? Super cool feedback. I love it. I want to talk about the book,
Mhm.
brand new. I want you to tell folks, it's not out yet, and you can pre-order it. I want you to tell folks where they can do that and all that good stuff. But tell us a little bit about the book, and you said something interesting, Nikki, and you're like, people didn't understand what I really do. And I was listening to you talk about all these different interactions you've had. I'm assuming this is probably a layer of the book or a chapter or
Mhm.
therein. It sounds like you were building a community to me. I get the impression that you've built this. I know where you are. I know you're in the Atlanta area, but it just sounds like you've just built this really amazing community of people, because you seem like you're that kind of conduit for people to connect and collaborate and to grow. And so you said people sometimes don't understand what I was doing. And like I said, the impression I got, or the impression I do get, because you're still in the middle of it, is you've built a community. So I'm sure that feels really, really good. But sorry to interrupt. But tell me about the book and brand new, and where folks can see it and find it and pre-order and all that good stuff as well.
Yeah, so the book is called Brand New, and it is currently on pre-order. It comes out next month, and
Cool.
so it's on pre-order on my website at Nikki Barjon, NikkiBarjon.com. I
Cool. We'll
forgot my
put
name for
we'll
a
put that in the
second.
show notes. No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. We'll link
Yeah,
it
and
there.
it is, it's not a book about success, right? Like, it's
Okay.
not like a book about, my accomplishments. It's actually about the struggle and the process,
Mm,
really deciding and being deliberate about where I wanted to be,
yeah,
or where I thought I should be,
yeah,
because I think that, given my background, given my experience, given my just my track record, to the average person, yes, I am constantly working on things. I'm extremely proud of my body of work, and I
Yeah.
have been afforded opportunities that most people would not have been afforded. And it's
Mhm.
a lifetime of amazing work, but there was something inside that just constantly, it started off as like a whisper, and then it got louder and louder,
The
but it
voice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that voice that people talk about, and it showed up, in real life. It started as like a whisper and a voice, and then it showed up in everything that I did. It just
Wow.
did not feel that I was being used at my highest purpose. I felt a
Wow.
lot of what I call nothingness, which is a word that I
Yeah.
just made
Just
up. It's just
empty. Just
yeah,
empty. Yeah.
it was a lot of empty talk, a
Mm,
cycle of just a bunch of nothing, wasted
mm,
money, wasted time,
mm,
no real impact. And so, while there were successes, and I was certainly having impact, because I try to have impact everywhere I go,
mhm,
because really, in a nutshell, my job is soul work. Like, it's
mhm.
it's not as sophisticated as people think. You
Sure.
really are trying to get people, brands, organization to be better.
Yeah.
And when I say better, it's not necessarily bottom line better, it's to be better people.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you are constantly working on how to get them to use their brand, their platform for good.
Yeah.
Um and so that doesn't change whether you're a person, whether you're a car, whether it doesn't change from client to client. I'm full service, so the clients can be they can be from any industry, but ultimately I am there to help them unlock sort of this hidden potential. And
Mhm.
so it's great work in the sense that it's rewarding, because you are really giving them hope. You're giving them a process. You're giving them, you're not just inspiring them, but you are giving them a process to say, you can be better, you can do
Mhm.
more, you can
Mhm.
have more impact. Here's how. And so
Mhm.
that part I love. And that
Yeah.
that part I have cherished, and I have honed, and I've become better and better at that part. The part that I was struggling with was really who I was doing it for.
Mm.
And the who started, to feel empty, in some cases,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
what I realized is that everyone wants to say they're doing, the good work. Everyone wants to say they're having impact.
Mhm.
But what you find is that there's so many people that are not having the level of impact that I thought they should have,
Yeah. You
based
talk
on
yeah, you're talking about unlocking potential, like you said. I think that's massive.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Let me let me interrupt you and just ask a question, because it sounds like, you kinda went a little more inward when you were writing the book, because you said
yeah.
you're focusing on yourself, being more deliberate. It sounds like you're all these lovely things. I wanna start being more deliberate and choose and more intentional who I work with, what they're doing, if how I can prop them up and whatnot. Sometimes as business owners, as entrepreneurs, and someone that has so much, background and experience and curiosity about, what's next and how can I fix this problem and what have you. Um, do you ever notice, because I noticed this with myself, I'm not comparing myself to my resume to yours, but, do you find sometimes it's, you're a mother, a wife, you have a home, this community you built, all these things. Did you find that it was good, like cathartic and it's important to put out the book and focus on yourself a little bit? Like, because we're very, very, I think, in people in our position, we're reluctant to. We almost feel like it'd be selfish if we go kind of inward and start asking ourselves those tough questions. Is that what you were doing with the book a little bit, or speak to that if you don't mind? If I'm hitting the mark at all, yeah,
That's exactly what I did. The book
yeah,
is really about is about that inner work.
yeah,
Even it's lessons learned, yes, in the sense of it is, sharing, it shares the successes, the struggle, the pain,
hmm,
the evolution of thought, like how I thought about things, and
yeah,
how, having a limited lens, crippled me for certain periods. And so it's not the, oh, I have this fabulous life. It really is about the self work. And it starts as early as my childhood, where I really talk about how I knew. So I grew up in Philadelphia,
okay,
and I was a Philly girl,
yeah,
and I didn't have a lot. I
oh,
was one of many, many grandkids. And I tell this story in the book of how looking back, I never thought about it like this, but in writing the book, I realized that I was being taught to be a great communicator because as a little girl, I was always hungry. And so
Mm.
there was never enough food.
Mhm.
And so I began to learn to communicate so that people would feed me and let me in. And so I could go up and down my block, getting food from
Mm.
people because I knew what to say. I knew how to say it.
Okay.
And I realized quickly that, oh, if I talk to Miss Rose this way and I have this tone and I offer to help, like she's going to invite me in and feed me.
Yeah.
And so, as a very little girl, I realized that I began in the communications business even
Mhm.
then because I knew how to get people to see what I needed and I knew how to articulate what I needed. And so that story is such a powerful story for me. I don't know if it will resonate with people, but for me, it really, there was a sense of peace because I realized that I've built this entire career and community and success, but it started with really understanding how to communicate with Miss Rose that was getting off from work, that was walking past my row home.
Wow.
um and those were really the people that nurtured me. It's a lot of, I talk about how I'm not really easily impressed. Yes, I work with big brands. Yes, I've, worked on very, very big projects, big budgets, but the people that impress me the most are still, my grandfather who, raised all of his grandkids, all of his children.
Wow.
Never had enough food for all of them, but somehow made a way. Like I talk a lot about that, and I talk a lot about, there's this one story that I love, and it gets you to think about who you are as a person, and it
Mhm.
involves the Miss Rose that I just talked
Yeah.
about. But
Yeah.
it's a story about me and my two cousins sitting on the stairs of the row home, and we were all angry because we didn't have enough to eat, and we
Mm.
were all sitting on the stoop like mad. And when Miss Rose walked by, my cousins, the way, she stopped and asked each of us what's wrong.
Mhm.
And so, and I don't name the cousin because there's a lot of them and I didn't
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
upset any of them,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I got you.
I say cousin one, responds, well, I'm mad because I'm
Right.
hungry.
Right.
And then cousin, she says to cousin two, what's wrong? And he says, I'm mad because I'm hungry. And my brother stole my sandwich. And
Mhm.
then she gets to me and I'm thinking, well, they I don't think they're doing so well. I don't know if we're gonna get anything to eat this way. And so when she gets to me, I say, well, Miss Rose, my cousins are upset because they're hungry. And my
Mhm.
grandfather's still at church. He's not home. And we just want something to eat.
Yeah.
And so I was the person that she said, well, come follow me and get you guys something to eat. And so that became kind of how I learned to communicate because I knew that I had something within me that would not only feed me, but would also feed my
Mm.
cousin. Um, and
Such
so, but I talk when I get there, I talk about how I bring them the sandwich, but then I go back and I say, I'll help you clean, I'll help you, set the table. And so I'm doing all of these things, kind of like the Little Red Hen. Do you remember that book?
I have an idea. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm doing all these things because it's dinner time. So I'm like, I think I can get some chicken out of this.
Yeah, yeah.
And and so I talk about how eventually, after staying there with her and talking to her and helping her clean, I get the chicken, and so I take that out to my cousins.
Mm.
And my one cousin takes a bite of the chicken. Well, I take a little. Well, the way I got the chicken is important because I knew if I just stayed close enough to the stove that she would need me to taste it to see
Yes.
if it was good.
Proximity. Yeah,
Proximity
yeah.
is
Yeah,
important.
yeah, yeah.
And so once she did, I took a little bite because I wanted to share it with my cousins. And so
Wow.
I wrapped it up and I went outside and gave it to my cousins. But once one of the cousins saw that I bit it, he was really upset.
Mm.
And so I remember thinking and not understanding, right? Because you're a kid.
Yeah.
But I just remember thinking, but it was my chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And so
this is a gift, man.
So I talk really in the store in the book, in I think the second chapter, I really talk about how I realized that my cousins wanted to eat.
Mm.
And we were all hungry, but they wanted to eat. And I also realized now that I wanted to feed.
Mm.
And so it's sort of those kinds of stories that you'll find because it really is. And so I challenge you at the end of that chapter by saying, when you think of what kind of person you are, regardless of what it is, because there's no right or wrong answer to it, but a way to that I kind of challenge people to think is, are you a Miss Rose?
Mm.
Are you a cousin? Or are you, my nickname is Buddha, so I say, are you a Miss Rose? Are you a Buddha? Or are you the cousins?
Mm-hmm.
All are very different. One fed, one wanted to feed, and one shared, and then the others just sort of ate and even complained.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the types of stories that I tell. They're very personal.
Yeah.
They're very colorful. I have funny stories, and I have very sad, tragic stories of just things that I've went through. But all of it is really intended to really get people to really understand that you are becoming a brand, whether you like it or not, based on your experiences from a very early age.
Yes.
And it's okay to recognize, who you are. The challenge in our lives become, are we moving towards who we want to be? Because we don't have to accept who we are.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that. You said, I don't know if this will be powerful. That hit me right in the chest. That was a very powerful story. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for getting so personal. It does sound like you're sharing a lot of yourself. And I'm sure it was such a huge eye-opening experience to be able to put those words on paper and think about yourself in that way and where all these things and these attributes of yours come from and what have you. I thought, oh, that's that if that doesn't impact people hearing it, I don't know what will. It's really, really great. Yeah. Do me a favor, Nikki. Will you tell folks where they oh, pardon me, you mentioned that already, where they can go to your website, nikkibarjon.com, and we will link that in the show notes. And I'm just so thankful that you came on and shared. So really, really,
Yeah,
really
no
grateful for that.
problem.
And I think the audience will be too. So
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm grateful to be here. Love
Awesome.
your work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, yeah, hey, as I mentioned, we mentioned a lot of things. It seems like you've done a miraculous job at building community. We're very, very grateful for being a part of it. And so thanks so much for letting us in. And of course, this is your invitation to come back. So thank you so much, Nikki. And best of luck with the book and the Sportsplex and everything that you're doing with your community and the people that you serve. So thanks so much for taking some time.
Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
I appreciate it. I
I
appreciate it.
really appreciate you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Nikki.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you don't mind, if you got any value out of it, please leave a comment or a question below. And if you're in a binging mood, we've got an HCA playlist of all of our podcasts and webinars that you can watch at any time. If you have a specific question about a certain fundraising topic, we're HCA. We've probably covered it. So take a look at the playlist, and we'll see you all next time.